So, hello, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of the EMEA Recruitment podcast in partnership, as ever, with our good friends over at Operation Smile. And as my colleague Rose has mentioned, we're delighted to welcome Susanne onto the show today. So, hopefully, you can still hear and see me okay.
Yes, thank you so much for being here.
Perfect. Really looking forward to it. And thank you very much for your time. I know you're really busy, so really appreciate your time that you're putting into this today.
Thank you. It's really nice to get this opportunity. It's slightly outside my comfort zone to be on a podcast, but it's part of learning, right?
Indeed, and this is something that we'll be talking about a little bit later on the learning curve and being outside the comfort zone. So no, it's nice. It's nice that you've referred to those already in the show. So I mean, obviously, I guess I mentioned the show is in partnership with Operation Smile, and to maybe ease you into the show, I thought it would be nice to ask you what was the last thing that made you smile, Susanne.
Well, I maybe not the last thing because in general I'm a quite positive person who tends to smile a lot. But I got a nephew in March, and after some complaining on my sister that she sends too few pictures, I'm now getting more, and that is definitely something that makes me smile a lot. So he is my sunshine for sure.
Nice, excellent. That's great. It's a really nice thing to have in your mind, and I think obviously you mentioned a very positive person generally as well. I mean, is that something that you've always been, or do have you have to work at this, or is it naturally your character to see things in a positive light?
Good question. I think it's just the way I am. I tend to see the positive things in very small things, and honestly, I think that's how I survived, for instance, lockdowns during the COVID. That I can be happy for very small things, and that helps me cope with everything in life, I would say.
No, I know a lot of people listening would say they'd love to have that approach and attitude to life. I think it's yeah, it's a nice one to have. So it's yeah, I think you can, if you got a positive attitude, things can just life can just feel like a little bit easier at times, I think.
Definitely. And, sometimes you just have to decide that you are going to see things from the bright side. So,
No, that's good. And I think obviously one of the things I was going to ask you about today, I mean, is actually the choices you've made through the career and why you chose to go the routes you did, and it's kind of linking into this positive mindset side of things as well, because when you look at your career path and the discipline you've chosen,
mm,
I think it would be hard to say there would have been easier paths for you to follow. You've not chosen necessarily the easiest path and discipline to follow. So keeping that positive mindset in this over the last 16 years can't have always been easy. But so
no.
I thought a question I was going to ask you was why you decided to choose finance in the first place as a career.
Yeah, it was definitely not a dream of mine when I was growing up. But then, as I say that, I also wonder if it's anyone's dream really to go into finance. But I was like most kids. I wanted to be a vet. I wanted to go into architecture or journalist, and there were a lot of things. But then, what really made me make up my mind was that I worked a couple of years before I went to university. And then I got to see what jobs really mean, because when you get out of high school, you have a kind of I don't know, maybe not the most realistic view on what different jobs actually mean. And I really liked the idea of having a job that could work in an international setting, and that was really what I was drawn to. And when I look at my journey, of course, I've done done a lot of things, because I started in finance and then I've been in strategy. I've been in, and that's maybe not so far off. A lot of people do that transition, but I've been the VP of sustainability, CSR, and I've worked with as chief compliance officer. I worked with branding and internal communication, and then yes, and then eventually, and I guess it takes a finance person to understand the next setting, but I was missing my numbers. So I felt I wanted to get back to that analytical type of job. So then I went back to finance, what is it, 5 years ago? And haven't regretted it since. So I really, really enjoyed this type of work.
I mean, what is it about the work that you enjoy, do you think?
There are several aspects. It's challenging, and I like challenging myself. It is a role where I have an amazing team around me, and the team is also, you know, people that I'm challenged by, and that forces me to always try to be my best, and I learn a lot from them. I also have great peers and managers, and you know, all of this together makes my everyday job very dynamic, and that's something that I really appreciate. And being a business partner, as finance is really about, is also something that I enjoy, because finance really touches everything in the company. There's nothing you can't put a bit of finance to.
Mm. And I think a word you've used quite a few times there in both answers is the learning side of
Yes.
things. And I know you've actually written an article on LinkedIn about this. The advice you'll give to people when choosing a job is actually something where you're going to learn on a regular basis. And I mean, I guess it's something you probably now look back in retrospect and think, well, you've had nearly 16 years in the business, and there's been a lot of learning as part of the international angle, the roles in communication and marketing and branding, and now finance. There's been so much learning for you in that period of time.
Yes, definitely. And, you know, as long as I feel that I'm learning something new every day, I'm happy. It's not important for me to have a specific title or so, but I definitely need to feel that I am learning new things. And there's always something. And when you have a global organization like I do, I mean, there's always new things that pop up. And also, you know, today where I am, we work a lot with sustainability in building and construction. So to have a past then, as you know, since I've been working with sustainability specifically, that makes it easier for me to kind of bridge into the finance and the business that I am in now. And then yeah, it's all about the people. I know it sounds like a cliche, but I'm lucky to have good people around me, and I've always had. So that really helps as well.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, we touched on it a bit earlier, but I mean, 16 years in the same business. I mean, it's something that, yeah. I mean, when I started out doing finance recruitment 23 years ago now, it was quite common to see. A lot of companies wouldn't even consider interviewing people if they hadn't been in the business for 2, 3, 4 years. Whereas now
Mm.
it's you don't tend to see that longevity from companies or from people willing to put that time in. So, I mean, do you think that's what it ultimately comes down to? Just the great person fit and the cultural fit that you have with the business?
Uh, Yes and no. I think that you know, the company I work for has changed a lot. I think it's the fifth ownership structure or something like that, and I counted at 1.9 different roles during these years. But it is an organization where if you do a good job, if you deliver, if you're accountable, then there will be different possibilities for you. And then you have to dare, of course, to say yes. And sometimes these possibilities come too early and sometimes too late. I've had kind of both. And yeah, but then you need to be able to kind of grab that opportunity and run with it as well. So that's probably one part. And then, as you say, the culture. Yes, I really enjoyed being in the manufacturing type of business where I can actually touch our products. I can explain the production process. I understand what we are doing. And there are far more complicated industries where maybe I wouldn't understand the full production process, but here I do.
And I think that's obviously linked to the fact you had that period of time in the business. Is I think it's not just understanding the process, but it's knowing all the key people, having relationships with all of them, and being able to coming back with something you mentioned earlier, be a strong business partner to these individuals and areas of the business. I mean, obviously, as I mentioned, you don't tend to see this so often these days, where people stay in the business this long period of time. So I mean, what advice would you give to people? If they're relatively early on in their careers, if they have the choice of moving or staying, what do you see the big benefits of staying versus moving out of a business have been?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think one of the main things is that you build a competence and knowledge about your industry. And of course, if you would stay within the same industry, that's usually transferable to the next one. But jumping between industries, then you always lose that and you always have to start from zero again. And of course, it can also be nice to start somewhere fresh where no one knows you. You can kind of reinvent yourself. But on the other hand, being within a business, as you mentioned, you get to know people, you get this network, and I mean, I don't think I can do it all alone. I know I need help from a lot of different people, and after this many years, I usually know who to call. So I know who to reach out to ask for help and support when I need it. And when you're new in an organization, you can't do that. And you're forced to become very formal, and you need to really follow the formal hierarchies and so on. Whereas I can work more behind the scenes and find the right people that I know are the ones that will move the needle for me. And vice versa, of course, helping colleagues when they need my help.
I mean, and I guess, when you've had colleagues or friends or family where they move jobs and go the opposite routes. I mean, have you ever had almost the fear of missing out? To coin on the common phrases at the moment. Is it something you've ever felt at all?
No, not really, because I feel that I'm learning so much every day still. I think if I would have found myself sitting in a position where I didn't learn, then that might have been something I would have felt. But I live in Toulouse in France now. I moved here three and a half years ago, and yeah, that has been a great opportunity for me. Before that, I was commuting to Oslo. I've had all these different roles that have taken me to, well, some stranger places and some more normal places. So I wouldn't say that I've ever felt that I'm missing out on anything. No.
No, it's good. It's good to hear, because it is I think it is a challenge that people, tend to go through. And so it's good to hear that. I think it goes kind of hand in hand. You're doing a great job in the business. They're rewarding it. They're recognizing it, and it's a great cultural fit. And I think if you get that, it's you have everything you need in that one business, and the potential to keep learning and growing. So it's made sense to stay in the business, which has worked well for you and for the company as well. And I think one of the other things I was going to talk to you about, because we touched on it a bit earlier, where you probably could have chosen easier career paths to go in. But it is what I kind of had in my head when I was saying that was more the the diversity side of things. And again, I know this is something that you've written about as well. And I mean, maybe rather than me talk about the articles you've written, maybe it's easier to ask you the question. I mean, how have you seen this change? Women in finance in this particular discipline.
Yes, definitely. I mean, yes, I am in a very male-dominated business. In my division where I work, we are around close to 25% women, not a lot. In finance, we're 55% women, but in fact, when I joined the company, my first position was as a business controller at what was then called SAPA at the group level. And in my original contract, it still says he, because they didn't have any female business controllers, and there were no finance managers that were women in the organization. And remember on my first day to work when I rode up the elevator, and I was surrounded by all these men in suits, and I thought, oh my God, what have I done? And there has been some challenges over the years, not only, nice experiences, but if I look at where we are today, we have come much, much, much further within the division that I belong to, the Extruded Solutions. We are 4 business units, and today 3 of the finance heads are women. So definitely something is happening, but still there is clearly a majority of men in the organization. And you can see both good and bad things with that. Of course, you stand out more, so you can't hide. But on the other hand, you're also more visible, so you can use it to your advantage in some cases as well. But we still have a long way to go, and it happens from time to time that I find colleagues in the organization who still strongly believes that not every job is for women. So I think that it is to some extent a generational thing and a generational aspect, but it's maybe moving slower than I would hope. And when I see some statistics, not only from our company, but from around the world, I don't feel super happy. Within our company, we believe strongly in this, and the war for talent that everyone keeps talking about. If you don't fight with all genders and try to find people from all genders, you're definitely not going to win that war for talent. So I think in my management team where I sit, we are pretty aligned and believe that this is something that we need to work actively towards. So we have as a target, which it might sound very simple, but I think it's good, and that is that half of all the new recruitments should be women and half should be men. Mm-hmm. So that is at least a starting point, and then depending on how the market develops and how many people we recruit, it will of course take potentially longer time to reach full gender balance. I was just going to say, and that is then only talking about gender as men and women, and of course there are other genders as well that where I feel that we as an industry are definitely behind other industries.
Mm. I mean, I was just quite interested to take you back to when you joined, and I think, well, that being in that situation, the only woman in the room. I mean, it's very, it's difficult I'd imagine for a lot of people to even envisage that if they're starting their careers at this time. But it must have been very, I don't know, daunting or I mean, how did you get through that period of time? Because yeah, I mean, even if nothing negative was said, it's still quite daunting. You're the only woman in the room, and it changes did you have to change the way you approach things, to get your voice heard, do you think, or did people change to help you to fit in as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. Trying to think back a little bit. I think it was a mix. There were definitely situations where I felt that I was the one adapting, and I mean, there's also plenty of research on that and how successful or not successful that is. But yes, I definitely felt that I had to really fight to have my voice heard in many situations. But I also had a lot of good managers who didn't really care what gender you were as long as the job got done. When I started in the company, we were so lean and mean in the head office that there was not. I mean, the more old-fashioned managers didn't really have the luxury of cherry picking who would do and run these different projects in that sense. We were all working on the projects that we had, and you could make your mark through that in a way. But sure, I had situations that I found really difficult and I didn't know how to manage and how to handle. And I think, again, it comes down to having good managers in those cases, helping me and guiding me through those situations when I asked for help. And I still believe firmly that the best thing a young woman can do is to pick male managers that have daughters.
Mm-hmm. Ah, that's why. Yeah, that's it. I've never heard that advice before, but that's quite good actually. I think. Yeah.
All my previous male managers, no, with the exception for one, all of them had daughters. So
Okay, that's good. That's interesting advice. So it's, yeah, I think, and yeah, you've just found that they've been more, well, stronger managers as a result, or more
not
aligned.
maybe, yeah, maybe not more stronger, but they want a good world for their daughters, and I think they are more receptive to these type of nuances and see these things from the perspective of their own daughters. But of course, that's not the only type of manager. One of my best managers through the years, he doesn't have any children, and he was amazing when it comes to all of these things. So of course, it's not the only thing, but the most important thing I would say is to choose your manager at least. And I think too few young people do that when they start their career. They are just so focused on being chosen that they forget that it's supposed to be a matching process. It's you need to find a manager that you believe is the right type of person for you, the right type of manager for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's worked out, very well for yourself over that period. Now, 16 years on, and I think I mean, I don't know whether you ever reflect on this part of things, but I mean, you must feel quite proud with the fact that of where things have come. From being the only woman in the room to now having conversations about, getting a 50-50 split in gender hires. I mean, even though it's, you say it's not as great as you were probably once, but it's still a big improvement over that 16 years. So do you feel proud of what you've achieved from that point of view?
It's not just my achievements, of course, and we are a lot of people who believe in the same things, and that helps, of course. But what I'm proud of is that when I have the opportunity to help young women in their careers, I take that opportunity, and I make sure that at least in my organization, I don't have things like gender pay gaps and so on that I know exists and that I was hit with when I started in the company. So I made a pledge to ensure that that was not going to happen under my watch. And yeah, I think that we we have a lot of good managers, and some of the ones that were perhaps less good, they are no longer in the company, and that has of course also helped the journey.
Mm-hmm. No. Obviously, we talked quite a lot about the past and the changes and what you've learned, but yeah, now in the VP finance role for the building system business. I mean, what's how does it feel like to be in this role?
It feels challenging to come back to that, but I'm super proud of my team. That is one of the things that makes me most proud in my everyday work, I would say. They are a bunch of superstars, very different. I mean, we've been touching gender diversity, but diversity is, of course, so much more. And I have different nationalities, different backgrounds, different personalities, and that is something that is really important to me. So I feel very proud when it comes to my team. So challenged and proud.
Mm. No, that's great. So, no, I think obviously you mentioned the team and people through the conversations so far as well. And I feels like being on the recruitment podcast, we can't really not ask a recruitment related question because I mean, yeah, I mean the things you've alluded to are right as well. You know, I mean, a lot of the success of a company and as whether you're going to enjoy a role or not is down to the culture, which is ultimately then led by the people that are within it. And I was going to ask you, when you've been building teams yourself, I mean, are there certain things you've tried to have in place to have an efficient and effective process around recruitment?
Mm. Well, when it comes to the process, I'm really happy that I have a good HR business partner that I can work with, because I see it as something that is really done in collaboration. But I really look for this diverse team. I don't want a bunch of mini-me's. I want people who are different, both from me and from the rest of the team, so that we get good balance and different perspectives and viewpoints, because I believe that that is really crucial when it comes to good team performance. This more challenging, of course, to build a good trust and openness in a team where everyone is super different from each other. But at the end of the day, I believe that if we, in a respectful way, disagree on a daily basis, we will always find, a better solution, a third solution than compared to what we were coming up with as a start. So I look at that. I use testing to some extent. I think it's not something I see as written in stone or completely black or white, so to say, but I believe it's a good way of starting discussions and having better dialogues during the interviews. And then, yeah, it's about finding the right potential, I would say. I try to focus less on what people have done and focus more on what I believe that they have the potential to do. It's so easy to stare yourself blind at someone's previous experience. Uh, but what got them there is maybe not what will be needed to take them to the next level. So I try to tell my organization that instead of viewing their careers as this classical ladder, they should look at it as a jungle gym where you take a step sideways or down, or it's not always just up, up, up. And to find people that have that, I think it's really crucial.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I mean, I think it's yeah, trying to hire people on potential and people who've got that flexible mindset and attitude is the ideal scenario. If you, but unfortunately, not everybody is these people. So you have to meet a few. But I think, I mean, do you find that recruitment has become easier since technology has improved, or do you think it's become more challenging?
I think that, of course, there are some things that might be easier, but I really believe that when it comes to recruitment, you need the in-person experience to be really successful. So I don't know if I think that technology has helped a lot when it comes to this, to be honest. Maybe not the right answer.
No, I mean, I think it's always interesting because I think it does make life easier, to be able to hop onto a video call and do an interview. But then, to really get to know somebody, especially if you're going to make the call and be working with them for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you want
Yeah.
to be seeing them in person, because I think if you get it right and you find this person with potential who's got the flexibility and so on, then it's great. But then obviously, if you have the opposites and you get it wrong, then it's quite a challenge sometimes, and it's a bit of a drain on for everybody if you hire the wrong person, which is going to be my next question ultimately. If you what you found to be the true cost of the wrong hire. I mean, hopefully you haven't experienced it too many times, but when it has, is there any way you would kind of evaluate what the cost of the wrong hire is?
Yes. I mean, I think it's far more. The cost is far more than one really believes. And first of all, I think it's quite rare that you end up hiring a really rotten person. It's more that it's a question of whether it's a good match or a bad match with your expectations as a manager and the role in itself. But when that doesn't match, of course, you will have the cost of potentially firing a person. You will have the cost of running a new recruitment process. But the real cost, which is much more difficult to put money to it, is the fact that the job does not get done, or it doesn't get done at the level that you want. Maybe the team around or you as a manager have to step in and compensate, which either means that you need to down prioritize other things, or it increases the workload for the team, increases stress around. And also, if you have someone who's not delivering, that can be experienced as very negative for the rest of the team, where they see that, okay, here we are putting in a really good work, and there's someone who's not doing it. So I think there are a lot of hidden costs to wrong hires, and it is really important to do it right and to let it take the time it takes to run a proper process. And I can for sure improve myself when it comes to this, but luckily there are professionals like you and your colleagues. So it is really a skill set and a trait almost to manage to find the right match between a person and a role.
No, it's true. I mean, I think it's the person, the role, the cultural fits, as you say, the fit with the manager, and I think there's so many things to try and get right, and I think it's. Yeah, I think the video interviews, they make things more accessible, but not always as effective as maybe they used to be in the past, where you got to commit some more time and interview in a bit more detail than sometimes you may do in a video call. So. I mean, in terms of the stress levels as well, I mean, it can be quite stressful if you have, one or two people in the team who aren't performing well. It's stressful for your colleagues and for and for you as a manager. And I guess one of the things on that, linking the stress in, was you usually find people who get to your level are very good at prioritizing their workload, having a very structured diary, or at least the top 20% of their work is done before they look into other things. I mean, are you one of these people who are very, very strong on the structure of the diary and prioritizing your workload very well?
Maybe you should ask my boss. I bike to and from work, and that has really helped me a lot, because while I'm on the bike, although I do listen to podcasts like this one quite often, but it's also my way of getting structured in my mind already on the bike for the day to come. Yes, I am structured. I think it comes with the job and in finance, and also I see it as one of a manager's foremost tasks is to help the team to prioritize when they are struggling with prioritization, because we don't have a job where you ever get done in a way. Sometimes when I'm tired, I dream of a job where you have a task, you do it repetitively, and then you get done by the end of the day, and then you go home. Would of course bore me to death, but it's you have to find some structure, and one of the things that I have become better at is blocking time in my calendar to do certain things. I read about this type of time boxing methods and so on that I've started trying out a little bit to see if that can help me. But yes, I would describe myself as fairly structured.
Mm-hmm. No, no, and I think you mentioned at the start of that you cycle in and home from to and from the office, and I think if I look at the people that we've spoken to on the podcast so far who are in VP level or C level positions like yourself, I'd say it's about 80% of them do something similar. So whether it's cycle or run or whatever it is, even walk the dogs in the morning before they go into work. Most people are up earlier than others, to just get that bit of exercise in. It doesn't. It's not strenuous exercise. It's just a case of it's getting your heads together for the day, and then also unwinding after you finish work as well, because if you go straight from work to your house and you've still got all the work things in your head, you take that with you into the dining area as well. So I think
Yeah,
it's really, it's just a common trait we seem to see with a lot of the successful people we've had on the show.
definitely. And I was reflecting on that a bit, that I I somehow wish that someone would have told me earlier on in my career how incredibly important it is to prioritize your own health when it comes to exercise and so on. And just like you mentioned, it's kind of fascinating in one way when you see CEOs being ultra runners and doing all of these intense ultra marathons and trail running and everything. But to deliver at peak performance, you do need both a healthy body and mind. And of course, there's plenty of research showing that physical exercise helps you to become more creative and more analytical, and it fights depression. So you have all this stress management part of it. But for me, that is something that I wish I would have prioritized more early on in my career, when I was more focused on just getting in the work.
Mm. I mean, is that something you still managed to do over COVID? You still managed to, because obviously you're not cycling to and from work, but you're still able to get the exercise in as well.
Well, during the first lockdown, I was lucky because I managed to escape back to Sweden, and there we were allowed to be outdoors. So I could do quite a lot of walks and runs and so on. So I continued doing that. During the second lockdown here in France, I was actually allowed to be 3 days per week in the office. So then I biked to and from office, and because there were no people out there, I could also speed up on the bike and use that as real exercise. But yes, I tried to get it in, but I lost some of it, I have to say. I did a fair bit of weightlifting before, and going to the gym was, of course, not possible during COVID, and still have to restart that one.
Well, I mean, I think you mentioned the cycling, and I think one of the things that I think a lot of people mention on this is that if you try to do it so often that it becomes almost like a habit, and you're doing this
Hmm.
as part of your routine, just like you brush your teeth in the morning. If you do it, you don't even think about it, and then that tends to make the difference between the people who see exercise as this huge thing and build it up out of all control, and then will always find time to watch a Netflix documentary, but won't find time to go for a walk for 45 minutes. So it's that kind of mindset, isn't it? And I think that's the way it's worked well for you on the cycling, to and from the office, and that's good. Again, good advice for other people as well, just starting out in their careers as well, I think.
Yeah, thanks. I believe that it makes wonders to be on a bike in fresh air instead of sitting in traffic, being annoyed with other drivers, or being in a completely full subway or what have you. And that half hour that it takes is just perfect for me. And yeah, it gives me time to listen to podcasts and learn new things as well. And
No, yeah, so it's multitasking, right? That's yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. And then the last question, really. I mean, obviously, we talked so much about what you did at the start of the career. We talked about what you're doing currently. So it feels right to ask you a question at the end about what lies ahead for you. So do you have any particular long-term goals you're really looking to achieve?
I have two goals, one professional and one personal. My professional goal is to continue learning. As I've mentioned quite many times, I think I'm a very curious person, and the day I stop learning, I think then I will lie down and die. So continue learning is my professional goal. And then privately, I did a very fun hike this summer that was more challenging for me. So now I have my eyes on an even more challenging
Oh, wow.
peak to get to. But that brings me back to the learning about keeping fit, because then I need to keep up with my exercise to be able to do that one. So that's definitely my second goal.
And on the hiking side, is that, I know the picture behind you is where you went on the holiday. So this was part of the hike, I guess?
Yes, it was. I went to, it's called Roland's Breach. It's just between France and Spain on the border. And then I went up to a peak called Taillon, which is one of the peaks above 3,000 meters here in the Pyrenees. So that was really amazing. And for me, that is the best way of recharging, because no cell phone reception. You only focus on where you're putting your feet and hands when you need to use them to get up. And no, that's something that I can highly recommend, being out in the nature.
No, that's awesome. It's almost like active meditation. You say away from the phone. You've got to focus on one footstep after the next, and yeah, it's and you don't, especially these days, you don't get the chance to do that as much, or you get the chance, but there's challenges all the time to do it. So it's yeah, it's great that you've had that, and so we look forward to hearing what the next one is now. Have you got one line? Have you got the hike lined up? Do you know which one it is you want to do, or is it just something you're thinking about?
Next summer, I want to get up on a peak called Aneto, and that is even more challenging than this one that I did this summer. So
Okay,
that's my
okay.
next goal.
Wow. Well, I look forward to hearing about that, and yeah, and all the best for that. Yeah, because I think that's you're gonna have to get into the gym again more now for doing those ones, right?
Yes, definitely. So good goal to have for more than one reason.
Well, really appreciate your time, Susanne. It's been great speaking to you. I know the network will take loads from this, and I've really enjoyed the conversation. Really inspiring, and great to hear the career path and what you've learned, and to hear the advice you have for anyone else looking to emulate this as well. So a huge thank you for your time and advice today.
Thank you for inviting me. I hope it was useful for someone.
Really good. Thank you, and yeah, best of luck, and yeah, we'll keep in touch.
Take care. Bye.
Bye bye. Bye.